Somewhere in this forest, a man vanished with $200,000 and never surfaced again. He had a bomb, a parachute, and a plan that no one has ever fully solved. More than 50 years later, this remains the only unsolved commercial airplane hijacking in American history.
The mystery isn't just who he was. It's how he seemed to disappear without a single solid trace.
One small, cheap tie left behind on a plane seat is almost all investigators ever had to go on.
This is the story of the only hijacker in American history who simply disappeared into the night.
How does a man jump from a moving airplane at night, in a storm, and simply vanish?
He began the day as an ordinary passenger. By nightfall, he was the most wanted man in the country. So what is the hidden truth behind this decades-old, still unsolved case? To understand what happened, we have to go back to Thanksgiving Eve, 1971.
In 1971, airline security was almost non-existent. Anyone could buy a ticket with cash and no identification.
A calm, unremarkable man bought a one-way ticket using the name Dan Cooper and paid entirely in cash. He ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and waited calmly for the plane to take off. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a folded note to a flight attendant seated nearby. The note claimed he had a bomb in his briefcase and instructed her to sit beside him. He opened his briefcase just enough to reveal a mass of wires and red sticks and asked her to write down his demands. His demands were simple and specific: $200,000 in $20 bills and 4 parachutes. Most passengers on board had no idea that anything was wrong at all.
The plane landed in Seattle as instructed, where authorities were already waiting, keeping their distance.
The airline delivered exactly what he asked for: the cash and 4 parachutes. In exchange, he released all 36 passengers, keeping only a small flight crew on board.
He then ordered the plane to take off again, this time heading toward Mexico City at a low altitude.
Somewhere over southwestern Washington, he ordered the crew to stay in the cockpit and lowered the rear stairs. Then, into freezing rain and total darkness, he jumped. No one on the plane saw him land. No one on the ground ever reported seeing him at all. The plane landed safely with its remaining crew, but the hijacker, the money, and the parachute were gone.
Within hours, the FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in its history.
Search teams combed the forest for weeks and found nothing but silence. As weeks turned into months, the case only grew larger and more confusing. Thousands of tips poured in from across the country, each one requiring careful review.
It wasn't just a hijacking anymore. It had become a national obsession.
Newspapers across the country ran the story for weeks, turning an unknown man into a folk legend. The same forest that swallowed him in 1971 has been searched again and again for decades since.
Investigators reportedly believe the hijacker had some familiarity with the specific aircraft he chose.
And because so much remained unknown, the public filled in the gaps with theories of their own.
No confession ever came. No definitive proof ever surfaced.
Over the decades, investigators reviewed hundreds of possible suspects without ever confirming a single one.
Its real legacy became a case file that grew heavier every single year, without ever closing.
The FBI gave the case an internal name, NORJAK, short for Northwest Hijacking. What began as a single case file eventually grew into tens of thousands of pages of documentation.
The recovered tie became one of the case's most examined pieces of physical evidence.
Decades later, forensic review found over 100,000 microscopic particles embedded in that tie.
Rare metals among those particles hinted the hijacker may have worked around specialized manufacturing equipment.
Just as I suspected. He never left the terminal.
That discovery confirmed the money was real, but it raised as many questions as it answered.
This single clue reshaped theories about exactly where and how the jump might have ended.
Every new clue seemed to explain one detail, while quietly deepening the mystery of everything else. And because so little evidence ever definitively connected, the case simply kept accumulating theories instead of answers. It's a complete reversal of how a criminal investigation is supposed to end. But the physical evidence alone doesn't explain everything hidden behind this decades-old mystery. Even today, the recovered tie remains carefully preserved, waiting for forensic science to catch up to it. Modern forensic testing later extracted partial genetic material from the tie, though never a clear match to anyone. Amateur investigators have spent decades combing the same forests, hoping to find what professionals missed. New physical fragments, possibly tied to a parachute, have periodically surfaced and reignited interest in the case. Over the decades, investigators quietly considered hundreds of names, without ever confirming a single one. Behind the scenes, this remains one of the largest, most exhaustively documented case files in FBI history. Recently declassified files revealed new details about the hijacker's apparent flight knowledge and caution.
Each newly released page reignites public fascination with a case that officially remains inactive.
A dedicated community of amateur researchers still meets regularly, comparing notes and new leads.
Cooper, the unidentified hijacker, was a man of medium build, 6'1", with entirely unremarkable features. He wore a simple, earth-toned outfit.
An unsolved mystery leaves a space the mind can't help but try to fill.
For decades, this case has sparked debate among strangers who've never met, united by the same unanswered question. Books, documentaries, and countless articles have tried, and failed, to close this particular story.
This isn't just about one man's fate. It's about how uncomfortable it feels to leave a story unfinished.
Every new theory, however small, offers a brief feeling of getting a little closer to the truth.
That's a rare kind of staying power for a single case, and it's exactly why it refuses to fade away.
Other hijackings have been solved. Other cold cases have closed. This one simply refuses to let go. And a mystery that endures this long, without ever fully closing, becomes something close to folklore.
Let's break down exactly how this investigation was run, reviewed, and eventually scaled back.
In the first 5 years alone, the case consumed an enormous share of the local field office's resources. As leads slowed and new priorities emerged, the investigation gradually shifted to a part-time review.
In 2016, the agency formally announced it would redirect resources away from active investigation.
All physical evidence was preserved at national headquarters, in case new, verifiable proof ever surfaced.
Officials stated clearly that new tips would only be considered if tied to actual parachutes or ransom money.
Even so, private investigators occasionally still submit new physical finds for official review.
It's not one case file anymore. It's an entire preserved archive, waiting for one final answer.
And every remaining piece of evidence reinforces the same simple, frustrating truth. It's still not enough.
This is a case modern forensic science has tried, and so far failed, to fully crack.
But no case this famous stays free of confusion and false leads.
Over the years, several men falsely confessed to being the hijacker, each claim eventually disproven.
A separate hijacker, caught the following year using a similar method, was investigated as a possible suspect, then ruled out on key details.
Witness descriptions of his appearance sometimes conflicted, complicating any attempt at a definitive sketch. Decades of physical searches across the suspected landing zone turned up nothing conclusive. Even dedicated researchers began to wonder whether the case would ever truly be solvable at all.
In 2016, the agency formally closed active investigation of the case, citing exhausted leads.
And yet, the case never truly disappeared. It simply moved into permanent, careful preservation. Now, advances in forensic science quietly offer new hope for finally re-examining the old evidence. Newly declassified files continue to surface, offering fresh details even without a final answer. Independent research teams continue field searches, hoping modern equipment succeeds where older methods failed. New computer modeling continues to refine estimates of exactly where the jump might have ended. New generations of researchers keep the search alive, decades after the original manhunt ended. For some who've spent decades on this case, the search itself has become its own kind of reward. This mystery isn't just surviving the passage of time. It's quietly waiting for its final chapter.
But the biggest lesson here has nothing to do with a parachute or a briefcase at all.
This case proved that some mysteries endure not despite the evidence, but because of how much still doesn't add up.
A single small object, preserved for decades, still quietly holds more questions than answers.
The lesson isn't just for investigators. It's for anyone who has ever needed to know how a story ends.
Sometimes the most enduring stories are the ones that never fully resolve at all. And somewhere beneath that canopy, the truth may still be waiting to be found. This is the story of the only hijacker in American history who simply vanished and never came back.